Hi everyone and welcome back to the channel. Yesterday we talked about Trump's extortion on the Gordie Howe Bridge and Carney's response. You guys were fired up and I hear you. I really do. Trust me, I share your frustration and even anger. But here's the thing. Sometimes you gotta keep a cool head and play the long game. Just keep in mind who and what Trump really is. He is a terrible, terrible human being. A fraudster, convicted felon, a rapist. Clearly some of the worst trademarks a human can have. So, Trump said to Carney, now the bridge is built. You paid $4.7 billion for it. That's great. And you even paid for our access road in the US. Now that's even better. But I don't feel like honoring the contract. So here's the deal. Take it or leave it. You pay 50% of your revenue or the bridge will never be opened on the American side. Never. The bridge is desperately needed. Super important for Eastern Canada's industry, especially our auto industry. Let's just leave the emotions aside for a moment. Think about the dilemma. What choice did Carney really had? I know it's a shitty deal, but at the end, it's going to be Canada that's going to be laugh, not the US. And that brings us to today's video, where we're talking about something massive. Canada has taken yet another gigantic step towards breaking free from being America's resource colony. And we are doing it in a big way. Here's what we are covering today. First, the energy endgame. Canada and Japan just locked in a monster energy deal, ripping the US monopoly to shreds. Second, the defense revolution. The submarine and missiles contract with Norway and Germany pulling us into a new European alliance. And third, the strategic autonomy. This is Canada stepping up as a sovereign middle power with real global influence. Stick around, because this is the story of how Canada is finally getting the finger ready and standing on our own 2 feet. Let's get right into it. Alright my friends, let's get started with the energy side, because this is where the rubber really meets the road. Canada and Japan just signed off a comprehensive strategic partnership. That's an absolute game changer for Canada. Japan currently gets over 95% of its crude directly from the Middle East. That's a massive vulnerability, especially with the Strait of Hormuz being shut down by Trump's ridiculous Iran war. Japan's economy is completely exposed to instabilities half around the world. Now enter Canada. We are stepping up as Japan's democratic energy guarantor. The deal fast-tracks West Coast Pipeline's approvals to get Alberta's heavy crude directly to Asian markets. The Trans Mountain expansion is already running at full capacity, and a new pipeline could add another 1 million barrels a day to Pacific exports. But here's the kicker. Japan's refineries are built for light crude, not our heavy bitumen. So, what we are going to do about that? Well, we are co-founding the construction of coker units in Japan to retrofit their refineries to process our oil. This is the first time a Canadian province has offered overseas infrastructure funding. That's mind-boggling. Alberta's Energy Minister Brian Jen is personally leading the talks, and we are looking at blending our heavy crude with lighter synthetic oil to make it work in the meantime. Think about what that means. For decades, we sold almost all of our oil to one customer at a bargain price. Yep, the US. Now we are building direct Pacific shipping lanes to Japan, a secure 10-day trip that bypasses American refineries entirely. We are selling our resources at global market prices, and Japan gets real energy security outside Washington's influence. But yeah, that's not all. The critical minerals part of this deal is just as huge. Over $1 billion in commercial agreements are building supply chains that bypasses both Washington and Beijing. Japan and Canada are even evaluating a joint emergency stockpile for critical minerals like gallium and graphite. And yes, there's even more. The Edmonton Regional Hydrogen Hub just signed an MOU with Japan's Kawasaki Heavy Industries to explore a liquefied hydrogen supply chain between our two countries. This is Canada positioning itself as the go-to energy partner for the entire Pacific Rim. Yep, slowly but surely you can start forgetting the US. We are no longer just a supplier, we are becoming a strategic energy partner. For real bargaining power. Now, let's talk about the defense side, because this is where it gets really exciting. If you followed my channel, you know Canada just picked German's TKMS as the preferred bidder to build our 12 advanced diesel-electric submarines. This is the largest defense procurement in Canadian history, with a lifetime program potentially hitting 100 billions or more. The Germans and Norwegians beat the South Korean bid, and the strategic implementations are massive. Prime Minister Carney announced this dockside in Halifax, and here's why it matters. We are pulling Canada closer into Europe's orbit, just as the United States is pulling away from NATO. The German-Norwegian submarines will strengthen interoperability with European allies and give Canada independent global reach. We'll be able to police our own Arctic frontiers and project power to the Indo-Pacific without relying on American carrier support. The economic offset are just as impressive. The deal is projected to inject 86 billion into Canada's GDP and create up to 50,000 domestic jobs over the next 5 years. They are talking about building a heavy torpedo factory in Canada and co-developing hypersonic missiles tech. We are not just buying hardware. We are building an entire defense industrial ecosystem. And then there's the missile contract. At the NATO summit in Ankara, Carney announced an $800 million deal with Norway's Kronberg Defense and Aerospace to produce joint strike missiles for our already existing F-35 fleet. Those stealth cruise missiles fit perfectly inside the F-35's internal weapon bay. That means it's preserving its radar evading capabilities. Canada is now the 6th global operator of the GSM systems, joining Norway, Japan, Australia, the US and Germany. And as part of this industrial benefit, Kronberg is investing $76.5 million back into Canada's maritime sector. This is how you leverage procurement to build domestic capacity. But here is my hope, and I'll say this plainly. I hope Canada reconsiders the additional F-35 order for the benefit of the Gripen. The F-35 is a hangar queen, and we would be better off with an available, cost-effective fighter that gives us true sovereignty. But that is a conversation for yet another day. So, what does all this add up to? This is Canada officially breaking free from its resource colony trap. For a century, we exported raw materials to the US and imported finished goods, bleeding economic value. Canada relied on the American security umbrella, and our foreign policy reflected precisely what Washington wanted us to do. And those days are over. Now our deals are fundamentally different, because they include aggressive industrial and technological benefit policies. The submarine deal, legally binding our European partners to inject billions into our economy and share sovereign military technology. The missile contracts mandates our partners to reinvest in our domestic tech sector. We are not just importing weapons, we are building the capability to export them. Now Canada is choosing building partnerships with Japan, Germany and Norway to span both oceans. Those are reliable democratic allies who respect mutual benefit, not threats and ultimatums. Canada, the EU and Japan are moving boldly away from American dominance, and this shift is unstoppable. The US has been weaponizing trade, using tariffs and demands as leverage. And we are responding by building alternatives. It's not just Canada, it's a whole coalition of like-minded middle powers recognizing that dependence on a single superpower is a huge vulnerability. We are shredding our role as a passive northern hinterland and stepping onto the global stage as an assertive, self-reliant, strategic, autonomous middle power. And honestly, it's about time. The bottom line, Canada is no longer just America's resource colony. Instead, we are building direct relationships with many countries around the world. This gives us real options and real influence. The Americans are going to feel this. Higher gas prices, higher defense costs, and, as I said many times before, a rapidly shrinking influence over Canada and the world. So here's my question to you. Do you think Canada can pull this off, or are we still too dependent on the US to work towards a clean breakup? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Hit that like button if you are proud to see Canada standing tall, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you won't miss our next deep dive. This is Canada's moment, folks. Elbows up. And let's show the world what we are made of. Thanks for watching. I'm Wilfried Lemkula with Europe Curious, where we don't just repeat the daily headlines, but open the curtain so you can see for yourself what's really behind it. See you in the next one.